And we're back. You're listening to Community Watch and Comment, the Wednesday edition. I'm your host, David Whetstone. The case of Renisha McBride. On November 2nd of this year, 19-year-old Renisha McBride was fatally shot in the face on the porch of a Detroit home, and she was trying to seek help after being in a car accident. It was a very, very tragic case, and it seemed like it fits in to a number of microaggressions which lead to the death of particularly young people of color. Here to examine this situation and the impact of online activism and advocating for justice for Renisha McBride is Tara Conley. Ms. Conley is the founder and president of Media Make Change. She has spent many, many years as an academic and as a professional working with digital media technology, and she's a doctoral candidate at Teachers College of Columbia University. Ms. Conley, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. If you can explain your concerns about online activism, and particularly in the case of Renisha McBride.
Sure. Yes, I've been kind of researching online activism for quite a while now. It started with the events of Hurricane Katrina, and then I was also looking at the Jena 6 protests. About a month ago, I had started seeing some conversations emerge on Twitter, and writer, activist, and filmmaker Dream Hampton, who I follow on Twitter and I'm also friends with on Facebook, posted a message about a young woman named Renisha McBride, who had apparently been shot in the face. And this story, I hadn't heard about it in the news. Dream Hampton herself, she is from Detroit, so this was a story that was local to her. So I just started following the conversation and following what was happening, and then as soon as I started to realize that this was a case that was not necessarily being picked up immediately at least by the national media, it was certainly started to pick up in the local news. I saw how Dream Hampton was able to organize folks online and in her community using Facebook and Twitter. And I thought it would be an interesting kind of case study to look at to see if there was, in fact, an impact that online activism made in the case as far as it concerns getting the word out and story hitting national headlines and the prompting the prosecution to charge Theodore Wafer, who is in court actually right now as we speak.
Yes, he was charged a little over 2 weeks later. Again, he had shot Renisha McBride on November 2nd, and on November 15th he was charged with second-degree murder.
Yeah.
So let's get into the findings and then your interpretation. What is it that you actually examined?
So I looked at about 14 days worth of online media. This includes articles that went viral, social media updates, and with the permission of Dream Hampton, I was able to kind of screen grab her updates and make a timeline of the events. So I was also looking at Twitter updates and Instagram posts. And what I found was that certainly Facebook is what I call the reign supreme as the share king. There were lots of stories that were being posted on Facebook, and this is kind of how the story at least got picked up by numbers. And I was also noticing I think it was November 7th, when Dream Hampton had started organizing the first public rally on Facebook. I believe she released a press release on Facebook, which then got picked up by media outlets like Ebony.com. I think Jet had posted the press release as well. And then you started to see sort of this surge of conversations around the rally itself in national headlines. And Huffington Post, I will say, has picked up on the story very quickly. I think Kate Abbey is one of the reporters there. And she was not only reporting on the story itself, she was also reporting on the conversations that were emerging on Twitter about Renisha McBride. So there's a sort of groundswell of stuff happening and picking up around November 7th and November 8th when Dream Hampton and others in her community were organizing the first protest, the public protest in Detroit.
Ms. Conley?
Yeah.
We're running out of time for the segment, so I wanted to ask you, you bring up a notion called impactfulness, which is a number of criteria. Can you explain that to the listeners?
So I describe this notion of impactfulness or glimpses of effect. And I'm not looking so much at causation and correlation as I'm looking at there was several players and influencers and entities that made a sort of impact on how this story got picked up. Dream Hampton was certainly one of those folks. The Huffington Post, being that it's a widely recognizable online news aggregate, sort of helped the story get out into the mainstream. And there was other things that were happening at this time. I talk about the U.S. racial climate and transmedia storytelling, or telling the story of Renisha McBride on various media platforms like Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. So there's all these factors that were coupled in together that I believe, in my assessment, that made the story go viral the way that it did.
We've been talking to Tara Conley. She's the founder and president of Media Make Change. The report, which she refers to, is tracing the impact of online activism in the Renisha McBride case. Ms. Conley, if I'm not mistaken, listeners can find that at MediaMakeChange.org. That's all one word, MediaMakeChange.org.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.